Good morning, St. Francis, and good morning, people of God. It is Tuesday, the 17th day of October, 2023, Tuesday of the 28th week of the year, the 28th week in Ordinary Time. Today, we also honor the memory of St. Ignatius of Antioch, one of the early martyrs of the church, a church father, quote unquote, but somebody who wrote extensively on the Eucharist on his way to martyrdom, and what it meant, to witness for Christ in the midst of despair, in the midst of turmoil and oppression, and even death. It's interesting. He writes a letter, to the church at Rome. Again, not to any particular person, not to Peter or anybody else like that. So again, it kind of gives more evidence and affirmation of the fact that their leadership, within the early church was not necessarily assumed in one person, but there were many other kinds of locales that had each their own leadership, which all thought that there was an equality or at least an equanimity among them. Coming to this morning from one of the other parts of the chapter area. This is our chapel that's here. So there's Claire behind me, and over there is Francis, and over here, where is she? There she is Thea Bowman. So the namesake for our second, third, fourth, and fifth grade building at the Franciscan school. So we have her over here. Very nice likeness of her. But our altar, there are Bibles on the altar. Those will be given to the new members of the council, the new provincial of the new province today, when it officially comes into being. A little table over here upon which will be placed all of the seals of the former provinces, and then the seal of Our Lady of Guadalupe province, which will then be erected, and then our font right over there. So a nice little room to gather for prayer as we call upon the Holy Spirit to lead us into this new province. Today, our readings continue with Paul writing again to the church at Rome, and this is where Paul makes an interesting statement. Is that most people, again, the understanding of our faith is that God becomes one like us so that we might become one like God, and one like Christ. The problem with this, in many ways, unfortunately, is that we think of ourselves as Christ, as God, and we try to lead and try to run things, on our own terms, always, and by our own will and by our own might and everything else that we just think is ours and ours alone to do. And Paul writes is that does not sit well with God. Of course it would not. And again, whereas God gives up the heavenly throne and allows us to sit in it, we don't want to leave because we are not capable of running all the things that we think that we can, and we are not capable of being the people that we think that we are sometimes when it comes to our own greatness or our own ability to do marvelous things, to bring forth things. We can do only so much. We need God's help to make it work, to make it happen. And when we forget that, then we go down this terrible, awful road, a kind of sadness and a pain, and not being able to understand truly, what it is that we are about, or what it is that God is asking us to be, and what God is asking us to become. And so again, always to be mindful of that, and that Christ comes not to weaken our humanity and not to make us enslaved or make us feel less than who and what we are, but God comes that the glory and wonder of who and what we are, in light of God's glory that resides within us, might shine through us. In Luke's gospel today, Jesus is a very difficult dinner guest because again, he does not wash his hands before he eats, which again is a bad thing. You need to wash your hands before you eat. And the thing about it is that Jesus does not, and so he is kind of called on that. Why don't you wash your hands like the other people, like we always do, because we are Jews. We wash our hands before we eat. And then Jesus goes in this whole kind of thing where it's people who are unclean need to wash their hands, and sometimes what's on the outside is cleaner than what's on the inside, and on the inside sometimes while we do these outward actions, we are still filled with filth and dirt and decay and whatever it is, because we're just going through these motions, and we're just kind of calling people to go through these motions when nothing transformative and nothing wonderful is happening in our lives. That's not who we are. That's not who we're called to be. That's not what God asks us to be. God asks us to be people who are mindful of all that we say and all that we do, so that might shine forth more so than any kind of external action, and allow what is wonderful and glorious about us as creations of God to allow other people to realize the wonder of God in their lives. A blessed day, St. Francis and people of God. May the Lord give you his peace.